Hello, and welcome to the Community IT Innovators Technology Topics Podcast, where we discuss nonprofit technology, cybersecurity, tech project implementation, strategic planning, and nonprofit IT careers. Find us at communityit.com.
Got a haircut. I want to look my best for the podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to the Community IT Innovators Technology Topics Podcast. I'm Carolyn Woodard, your host.
My name is Steve Longenecker. I'm the Director of IT Consulting at Community IT. A number of times recently, we've helped clients with use cases that I thought might be of interest. We have had situations where a client has been using Google Drive but with personal Gmail addresses. So it might be client name at gmail.com. So it's understood by all concerned that this is intellectual property of the organization. But at the same time, it's not actually under their governance technically. Yeah. And whoever owns that account, username and password and 2SV, MFA, owns that stuff from Google's perspective. You can't say, oh, but look, our name's right there in the username. It's ours. If there was a bad breakup or whatever, just someone disappeared, because they left and forgot to transfer that information, and now it's kind of gone. So the client wanted that in their own Google Workspace, and what's the best way to get it there? And if there are things like Google Docs and Google Sheets and stuff like that, a lot of the traditional third-party tools probably convert them to like the Word doc format or the Excel format, which is not necessarily what people want. The other thing is, if you are using a third-party tool that's more or less copying from the source to the target, things like sharing links would have to be redone, because like I've shared this Google Doc with people, but I'm going to like download it and upload it essentially, which is what the third-party tool does essentially. Now it's a Word doc, but now I need to reshare it, and now it's in Word instead of Google. And what can I do about that? And what we found in doing I'm definitely not claiming that this is like some secret, and that this is probably well known to a lot of, Google, hardcore Google people. But what we found was that you can, if you create a shared drive in the organization's tenant, you can make external people not only members of that shared drive, but you can actually make them managers. That's the formal role that Google uses. It's like the top tier level. So you make them a manager, and that gives them the right to put whole folders of stuff into that. If they're not a manager, if they're only a content manager or only a what are some of the other levels? Editor, contributor. There's lower levels. They can only move maybe one document at a time, but to put a whole folder in, you need to be a manager. And so you share it, make that Gmail account a manager, and then the Gmail person logs into their drive as the Gmail person, and they suddenly see this shared drive that's the org shared drive, and they can drag and drop or click on the three dots and choose move, and the whole folder can be moved into the shared drive. And not only, what's really remarkable, and this is like this is not the way Microsoft works, and in this particular instance, the Google way really is like technically superior in this case. Like the URL of the document is immutable. It doesn't change. So if you've shared that URL with people, that URL is still valid. So if like someone, let's say it's an Excel, not Excel, sorry, a Google Sheet, and someone actually has references to those cells into their own Google Sheets, those references will still work. If you are moving a file or a folder from your My Drive, the Gmail account holder's My Drive, into the shared drive, if it is shared with people through a parent folder, it doesn't, it is shared with other people through inheritance, it's called. And by putting it somewhere else, it's no longer inheriting that. So then they wouldn't have access to it. But if it's shared explicitly, if it's not shared through a parent, but it's that folder is shared with me or you, and we move it to the shared drive of the organization, you and I would still have access to it because all that sharing property goes with it. Plus anybody who has access to the shared drive has access to it. So it's really powerful. It's really cool. The challenge generally is that frequently these folders in the My Drive are not just containing files or subfolders that are owned by the Gmail account holder. They might have at some point shared that folder with other people. And I, as the Gmail account holder, have all the rights in the world to move my files into the shared drive. But let's say I shared it with you as another person external, and you put your files in there. Those are your files. They are actually still they're in my folder and I can see them and I can even edit them, but they're not considered my files. So if I try to drag that folder into the shared drive, it enumerates everything before it even tries. And it says, we can't move everything in this. We can't move this folder because some of the items are not owned by you.
These three files, does it tell you these three files are?
It offers to give you the list of the files. And then we take different approaches depending on the situation. We advise different approaches depending on the situation. The thing that doesn't require any interaction with anybody else is to download those three files to, your desktop or whatever. And don't keep track of where they were downloaded from and, be organized, but download them, then delete them. Now, you're not actually deleting them, to be very clear, because they're not yours. What you're doing is removing them from the folder. Then they're considered orphaned files in the owner. The owner still owns them, but now instead of being in your folder, they're just loose in their My Drive. Then you can move it because those three files are no longer there. And then you could upload those three files from your copy. Now, if there are shared links on those three files, these are copies. So, and they're no longer owned by that person. They're owned by you as the person who uploaded them. And the date modified will be the date of the upload, not the date of the file that you downloaded. So that's like a workaround. The other thing that we had occur in a situation like this, the files, and there were many of them, but not like thousands, but like hundreds of files that were all owned by the same external Gmail account. And it was the same person. And it was actually a staff member of the organization. And somehow in the course of doing the work over the years, some of the files, it's hard to keep track of which identity. They got identified as being owned by this Gmail account instead of being owned by, the other. And so in that case, since that person was on the same team and would, had the same motivations and incentives as everybody else, they got the list of files. They didn't even bother to download them. They just deleted them or, again, removed them from the folder. But then they also shared the shared drive with that person and said, here's the list of files that we had to remove before we could move them. You have them in your My Drive because they're owned by you. put them back, like,
Uh-huh.
put them back where they belong. And so that person was able to do it because they were that person's, not,
Right.
So that was kind of an unusual circumstance, but it worked out really well. And we did this. The other place we did it was not when the organization was trying to take control and gain full ownership, governance, et cetera, authority over files that were in, my drive accounts of what are called personal Google accounts or Gmail accounts, but they don't even have to be Google Gmail accounts, but they're personal accounts. They're not owned by the organization. The other place where we sort of used this strategy was when an organization that was like a project of a nonprofit, and they all use Google, but that project it was an incubator. The parent nonprofit, fosters these projects 9 times out of 10 with the intention that at some point they'll be ready to spin out and go it alone. And this project was ready to stop being a project and start being an organization, start being its own thing. So they were spinning out. So they just needed to get their files out of the old tenant. And it was the same thing. We basically created the tenant, created the shared drives that they needed, and then and we even did this for their My Drive files, which weren't even shared. We created a shared drive called Carolyn's Drive, the shared drive, but it was called Carolyn's Drive. We shared it with Carolyn at the other organization. Carolyn just basically moved her My Drive files to that Carolyn's Drive, shared drive, and then logged out of that other Carolyn account on the other organization, logged into the new Carolyn account in the new organization. The shared drive was there, and it was up to her whether she wanted to leave it in a shared drive, which only she had access to, or if she wanted to actually move them out of the shared drive back to the My Drive, which is fine. Like either in some ways, I like the idea of actually finishing it all the way back to the My Drive, because having a shared drive called Carolyn's Drive that's only for one person, it's kind of weird aesthetically. Technically, it's not a problem, but anyway.
It seems like eventually, because you do also have a My Drive, so then
Yeah,
stuff would get
exactly. In some ways,
the other My
exactly.
Drive or My
That's right.
Drive. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So simplifying it seems like.
Yeah, but the fact that Google makes it possible to sort of do this without even using a third-party tool, again, this is like specific to a situation where the whole thing is happening in the Google universe. Like you're not leaving Google Drive or coming in from outside of Google Drive. It's just that you're coming from a Google Drive that's not originally owned by the organization properly. It's either a personal Google account that maybe someone spun up at some point. And this happens all the time, like a nonprofit that's not even a nonprofit yet. They're just like getting started.
A group of friends that are going to do something. Yeah.
They get a bunch of Gmail accounts, and then later, maybe 2 years later, they finally they launch. They're they have a domain name, and they get a Google Workspace, and it's free and it's great. But now they have all these files all over the place, and it has historically would have been kind of a challenge, but with shared drives, you can just share the shared drives with these other accounts, giving them the manager permission, and they should be able to really make a lot of headway of just putting everything in its proper place. So anyway, I wanted to share that with the people that might be interested.
I have a couple of questions just
to
follow up. So I feel like you're asking the people to do something, right? So that might be a little bit of like you have to either sit with them or take them through, like, we want you to put this folder in this folder now.
Yes.
Which is a little bit of a pain, but it seems like with a third-party solution, you would still have to do something to make it happen. So,
well, with a third-party solution, you have all these other, I don't want to call them costs, but like problems, like the fact that the sharing links are
no,
have to be redone and all that.
Yeah.
So what we have found is that more often than not, the MyDrive stuff aside, like when it comes to the way people have been working, usually one person has shared a folder from their MyDrive
Yeah.
with their colleagues who have been putting their stuff in that MyDrive. And, sometimes if it's all Gmail accounts, you would need to, you know, work with the individuals. Yeah, it might require a bunch of screen sharing or sitting down with the person.
Hmm.
Usually I have found that, like with the one case that I'm thinking of, we were working with the executive director, who I didn't think was that technical, but I also didn't think that they were like um, scared of technology or
Hmm.
ran away screaming when they heard technical
Hmm.
terms. But they were definitely not like the accidental techie of the office or anything. And we basically walked through like the first like example or two together, and we're like, so do you get it? And he was like, yep, I get it. Like I can
So they
take it
could
from
do it.
here. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of the way
Yeah, because I
it
think,
seems like it rolls. It's not that hard, but I agree. I wouldn't necessarily think that you'd get 100% like success if you just gave people some screenshots and said follow
instruction.
these
Yeah.
instructions. Like it
Yeah.
might be the kind of thing where you show someone how to do it once, then maybe watch them do it once, and like then they like say, okay, I get it. And then,
Yeah.
it's actually a similar process. And we have blog posts about this, to when you're not going from outside to inside, but just within a Google Workspace, when you're trying to unwind the fact that back in the day there weren't shared drives and
Yeah.
people just used their My Drive, and it's all within the workspace. So there's not a question of ownership or governance, but there is like challenges to using a shared folder from a My Drive versus a shared drive. Like there are
Yeah.
strong advantages to using a shared drive. And so we also help people with that. And there again, it's the same idea of like, okay, here's this shared folder called programs, and here's this now new shared drive called programs. We need to get the contents of this folder in the, program manager's My Drive into the shared
Shared
drive. And
drive.
it's a similar thing of like, if there's if there's files that are owned externally, it causes problems. You need to figure out
Yeah.
what the solution of that is. So it is, it's not like, because Google's very particular, if that's the right word. They they honor that ownership.
Yeah.
You can't just say, oh, this is, it's in the folder that I own, so I want to move it. No,
Yeah.
if the file itself says that it's owned by outsider at gmail.com, you cannot put it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Um, you can move it within maybe that folder structure that's shared, but you can't move it to a shared drive,
Yeah. And
because
you
that
said you could download it, which like
you can
breaks
download it and
those.
then delete it, or
Yeah.
not, again, not delete it, but remove it from the
Remove it.
folder and then upload it. And that works a lot of times very well. Like the classic example, because I remember this well from a client we helped with this, was um, most of their files were owned and were there was no question about the ownership. There was no problem. And so we were rolling along doing a lot of these migrations. In this case, it wasn't from external to internal. It was just from My Drives, shared folders
Hmm.
from My Drives into shared drives, trying to get that
Hmm.
cleaned up. And
Hmm.
suddenly we ran into this folder that every single file in it was owned externally. But we
Uh-huh.
looked at it, and what it was like a folder from like their anniversary,
Uh-huh.
and they had hired a photographer to take pictures of the events and so forth. And
Uh-huh.
so they had shared a folder
Yep.
with the photographer, said, please put all the pictures in here. So, there were thousands of pictures in this folder, but they were all owned by this independent contractor photographer
Hmm.
person. And that was like 5 years ago. That person may or may not have been available
Yeah.
for like assistance. And if so, I mean, you wouldn't, I mean, it was like, that
Yeah.
relationship was over,
Well,
but
yeah, it
they were
wasn't
just
files
pictures.
that,
They were just pictures. They didn't want to delete them, but like that was very easy decision just to be like, we're just going to download all these pictures because we want to keep them. Then we're going to remove them from the folder. The photographer still owns them.
Yeah.
If that photographer cares, which probably doesn't. But either way, like Google does its part. But now we have our downloaded copies.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're just going to upload, which is all we need. Then we're going to upload them, and like the files all suddenly had the date of the upload instead of the date of the event 5 years ago. That's a loss. Like metadata like that does matter, but the story behind it is well understood, and the folder name speaks for itself. It says like pictures from dinner or something like that, and so those kinds of things can happen. And in those cases, it does make sense just to simply download, remove the original, move everything, and then upload to the new location from your sort of swing space, I call it.
Mm-hmm.
But in other cases where, like, let's say that independent contractor photographer, has their pictures littered throughout, not just in one folder, but like everywhere, but you're still working with them. Like, or that maybe a better example would be lots of Google Sheets from your outsourced CFO. So your outsourced CFO has a bunch of sheets that have, budgets and things like that. Most of them are owned by you guys, but a few of them are by chance are owned by the Gmail account of the outsourced CFO. And, they're happy to like give you the ownership.
Yeah.
And you're paying them still. They're still your outsourced CFO. Say, here's the list. We need you to put these files in our new location. And then going forward, we'll share this shared drive with you called accounting, and you can, just use it. And everything you put in there will be owned by us, because that's how shared drives work.
Now, I have a question about, in those cases, you said you can make that external person a manager for the purpose of moving these things. Then do you take away their manager rights after?
I mean, the example we just said, if it's an outsourced CFO and they're continuing to work with you, maybe it's appropriate for them to continue to be a manager. Although even then, maybe you would lower their rank, to be what the next lower down is called content manager.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think of that as temporary. That's just for the transition.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of those people don't want that extra responsibility either. So
there's probably be a liability consideration too. But
it sounds, from what you're describing, like you were saying earlier about using a third party tool,
migration tool.
For a lot of Google users, and even if you have been, not using Google super cleanly, of what's your document that's in my drive, what is a shared document was in a shared folder, now it's in a shared drive, still people who are comfortable with Google. I like this method because you're keeping them within the Google universe, and like kind of that Google thought process of, this person owns this file and they're going to help us get it into the shared location where we can all work on it. And probably some older files, you don't even really need that. You're not still.
Oh, right. That's another option, right? Is not to download and upload, but just delete.
Delete.
Just look at it and be like, we don't need this file.
Cut off.
That's just, delete it.
But if you do want to just move everything and not worry about looking at it, like having that person help you, this sounds like a good method. So thank you for laying it out for us today.
Yeah, I've found the part about the fact that the sharing links, the link to the document, if you're using that link as a reference in other documents or other sheets, the fact that that's all doesn't change.
Yes.
Like really powerful.
Hallelujah.
Like, it's so cool. Like, like when you move something from one part of SharePoint to another, it definitely changes its URL. And you'd have to reshare it. Like, we even warn people when we talk about OneDrive, the URLs of OneDrive have your username embedded in them. If you look at a OneDrive link, you'll see the username is in there, and like towards the front, but not the very front. And so if somebody has to change their username for whatever reason, they change their name, that's going to change all the sharing links to their OneDrive, which, could be a nuisance. Like it could be a lot of work to like reshare things. And I mean, oftentimes a lot of those share links might be to things that are no longer actively being worked on, but nonetheless, it's a pain. But with Google, it doesn't really matter. Like a file being created, I guess, gets a long, very complex, random, alphanumeric URL associated with it, and that kind of stays with it, whether it's in your My Drive, your shared drive, a different shared drive, or even a shared drive of a different organization. The fact that doesn't really change, and that the permissions that are explicit to it, like sort of travel with that
Follow
document
it around.
is really cool. I mean, I just was like, wow, this could be, a real pain saver for some of these migration efforts that we've been, helping some of our clients with. And it's been really fun. Every once in a while, you get surprised by something being easier than you expect it to be, and it's really nice. So, yeah.
That's great. It's great. It's a success story.
Yeah. All right. Well,
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Community IT does these free webinars and podcasts for our community, and we love sharing our knowledge and experience. If you have more questions or are having trouble with your IT at your nonprofit, please get in touch with us on our website, www.communityit.com, so we can start a conversation or schedule an assessment. Downloading any of our free resources there will get you signed up for our webinar reminders, and you can attend our next webinar in real time and ask our experts your own questions. If you love podcasts, please subscribe and leave us a rating to help others find this leadership resource for nonprofits.